and I wanted to do something to give back to the game because I'd been very fortunate in a pretty rapid rise from being a high school coach in Texas to a head coach in the SEC in 10 years.
Yeah. Hey coaches, did you know we're now offering shows for all sports? That's right, whether it's basketball, volleyball, softball, baseball, football, soccer, you name it, we've got you covered. If you're looking for a way to showcase your program, promote your players, and highlight the amazing things happening with your team, our coaches shows are the perfect solution. Plus, our business model lets you or your booster club raise money while building excitement and support for your program. Don't miss the opportunity to take your team's story to the next level. Find out how you can get your very own coaches show. Reach out to Chris at 713-269-4620 today. That's 713-269-4620 because every team deserves the spotlight. Welcome to the Texas High School Football Coaches Show on Lone Star Gridiron. I'm Chris Doelle, and it's my belief that the men that make up the fraternity of Texas high school football coaches are much more than a bunch of thick-necked guys with whistles. They do so much more than teach technique and the X's and O's of football. They take young boys and change them into young men of character. They get kids to believe in themselves, to trust others, and to put others ahead of themselves. Texas high school football coaches are unique in how they impact the lives of these athletes as well as the generations those kids touch. In this show, I sit down with a different Texas high school football coach each time and learn about them. Not their record, not their on-field accomplishments, but who they are and what they believe and what it means to be part of the greatest sport in the greatest state. All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Coach Hal Mumme to the show. Coach, how are things going today?
Well, they're busy. I'm working on this International Football Alliance logistics and stuff right now. We're working on getting the franchises up and all that. So we're
nice.
Busy with that right now. I've been busy with that for about 9 months.
Sweet. I love the fact that you're always into something cool. But before we talk about that, I want to go way back. Tell me where you grew up, how you discovered the game of football.
I grew up around San Antonio and Corpus and went to high school in Dallas. My mother and father had a great affinity for Texas high school football. And my mother actually was one of the first cheerleaders to cheer in the Alamo Stadium when it was brand new for Brackenridge High School in San Antonio. And so after I came along, most Friday nights I had some cousin playing in a game. And so I grew up from the time I can remember going to Alamo Stadium and just fell in love with the game and all of it.
Nice. And you played in Dallas, you say?
I played at Thomas Jefferson in Dallas, yes.
Okay, what positions did you play?
I played wide receiver.
Nice. As a fellow wide receiver, I think that's very cool.
Yeah. That was in the days when we were just starting to loosen up, throwing the ball a little bit, and I was lucky that my coaches liked throwing the ball. In those days, that wasn't always a common thing.
No, I was played on a veer offense, so I literally was just the smallest blocker.
Yeah, that's unfortunately I had to do that my last 2 years in college. The first two though, I played at New Mexico Military, and we had a great coach there named Bob Dennis, who had coached in the Canadian Football League, and he was really in love with the passing game. So he wore a trench coat and a fedora hat and smoked cigarettes on the sidelines, and he he would, if the offense coordinator called a run play, he'd yell at him.
Nice. Well, that's a receiver's dream.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun. And
nice. So, when did you know you were going to be a coach?
I always kind of knew from the time I was about 9 or 10 years old that I wanted to do something. Obviously, when you're that age, you want to play as long as you can.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be involved in it. I knew I'd probably end up being a coach.
And how did you get your first start as a coach?
I was the quarterback and receiver coach at Moody High School in Corpus Christi, Texas,
nice.
In 1976.
And when you took that position, did you suddenly show up and go, wait, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be?
I worked for a great guy named Raymond Davis, and he kind of gave us a lot of latitude. And so we did a lot of experimenting with those kids, how to throw and catch. And Raymond liked the passing game too. So I was kind of lucky in that respect.
Yeah. So he let you kind of have a little leash there.
Yeah, he did. And we turned out some pretty good quarterbacks and receivers for about 3 years there. And then I went to be the head coach at Aransas Pass, and I did that for one season. And then I got lucky, and Bill Young hired me at West Texas State to be the quarterback and receiver coach there.
Right. And how did things change there?
Bill was kind of a option I formation coach. He wanted to run the ball, and we did a good job running the ball, but we also played kind of an impossible schedule. My first year there, we went over and we beat Oklahoma State when Jimmy Johnson was coaching them. And they were picked to be one of the top teams in the Big Eight in those days. And we went over and upset them, and we did it throwing the ball. And so then Bill kind of started giving me some latitude to do that. So we started chunking around a little bit more there. And after 2 years, he got the job at UTEP, and we went down there, and he made me the offensive coordinator. And I had a little more latitude, and I started. The best thing that ever happened to me was two things. One, I got to be the OC, and we followed BYU through the schedule. Yeah. So I just kind of blatantly started copying what Lavelle Edwards and them were doing. And the second good thing that happened was we all got fired after 4 years. And I went back to Texas high schools and became the AD and head coach at Coppers Cove. And then when I went there, the BYU coaches let me come and study, and they didn't open their doors to a lot of people in those days. They were pretty secretive, but they let me come, and that made a huge difference in my career.
Yeah, when I read the book, The Perfect Pass, I was blown away by that, the whole incarnation of how Lavelle Edwards, and then you being able to go in and watch film, and how much of that is how things happened.
Oh yeah, that's the book's very accurate. Sam Gwynn's a great historian. He doesn't write very many tall tales, and no, it's pretty accurate, and it was a great blessing to be able to go up there and do that, and did it. Oh, I guess for about 5 or 6 years in a row, I went twice a year. I'd go in the spring, and then I'd take my son back, Matthew, and let him go to their football camp while I sat in the film room and studied for 4 or 5 days. And then when we got to Iowa Wesleyan, that was the next big break I got, was going there. And Steve Kazar, who is a Texan and been around Texas a lot, was the special teams coach at the Chicago Bears, and he knew the president up there. And they had the worst team in America. They hadn't won a game in 2 years. And he called me, he said, "Do you want to be the head coach at Iowa Wesleyan?" And I said, "Well, do they want to win?" And he goes, "Yeah, they do." And I said, "Well, what kind of team do they have? And he goes, they're the worst team I've ever seen. He said, you'll have to build it. So we went there, and I hired Mike Leach, and Mike and I, for the next 10 years, became great collaborators, and really what people know as air raid offense now got developed right there. Really the third year we were there.
Right. When you go into a program like that and you have to teach people how to win, how do you sell that to them? How do you get that buy-in?
Well, it's different in every place. Each school you go to or each team you take over has got its own personality and its own dynamics, and you have to figure that out pretty rapidly. I've done it twice very successfully at Iowa Wesleyan and at McMurray. And then I've had a couple of failures too at New Mexico State and Belhaven. I think the people you work for, like all coaches will tell you, you're not any better than the guys you work for. So if they really want to win, and they'll do some things to help you out, and a lot of times it's just little things like administrative kind of things. You'll get the job done if you stay in the fight. And then I've taken over some that were better off. Valdosta State was a lot better off when I got there.
Yeah.
Kentucky wasn't winning, but when I got to Kentucky, they had a long dry spell of not going to bowl games and stuff like that. But we had Tim Couch in place, and we had Craig East in place, and a couple other guys. So at least there was kind of the basics of having a great offense was already there. And then defensively, that's where we really had to concentrate on building that program, because there was no defensive players when we got there to speak of. So we moved a lot of guys around from position to position, and we recruited very hard on defense, and finally got so we could, we weren't going to stop a lot of people in the SEC, but we could at least break serve when we needed to.
Nice. Yeah, talk about the defense, because people don't think about the flip side of the air raid offense is your offense is quick, so your defense is going to spend some time on the field, right?
Well, they're allowed to get off the field in 3 plays if they want to, so that's what I always told them. And that's why we started going for it on 4th down all the time, and a lot of times. And I think the first year at Kentucky, we went for it on 4th more times than we punted.
Nice.
And we, at the end of the year, we studied it, and we had played better defense. In the times that we were not successful, we played better defense with our backs against the wall than we did when we punted the ball.
Right.
And so I think it's kind of a mentality, and that you have to get the defense to feed off the offense and vice versa. That's why I really enjoyed working with I got to work with some great defensive coordinators. Joe Lee Dunn was a real treat, because he was such an innovative guy, was such a good sideline coach, game day coach, and he could adjust. And much like us on offense, he had his own scheme that he put together himself, and so nobody knew any more about it than Joe Lee.
Nice. And going back to Valdosta, that seemed like a perfect storm, because y'all turned out some amazing offensive numbers.
Yeah, we did. It was, that was in the mid-'90s, and we went there in 92, and we left in 96, after 96. And we turned out 2 Harlan Hill Trophy quarterbacks and a whole bunch of All-Americans in the O-line and receiver, and we always had a 1,000-yard rusher in the backfield. We had some pretty good. We had some great numbers. Chris Hatcher, who's now the head coach at Samford in Birmingham, was our first Harlan Hill Trophy winner, and he set all kinds of records. And then he did it for 3 years, and then Lance Funderburk took over and did it for the last 2, and Lance ended up being a runner-up to the Harlan Hill and broke a lot of Chris's records. So they both were amazing players, but even better people.
Definitely. And then I guess keep taking us stop by stop up through today, because you've made quite a few other stops unrelated to college and or high school even.
Well, we went to Kentucky and we got it turned around, and then C.M. Newton, my AD, retired. And the president was let go. I kind of looked up and was out of, out of all the people that above me that were supporting me were not there anymore. And so then we got accused of some NCAA violations, and they didn't want to pay me. So that was I think that was the thought process by the new AD. And, but in the end he had to, because I didn't do anything wrong. And anyway, so I had to resign. So we sat out. It took a whole year to get through all the NCAA nonsense. But it was fair. They made a good finding, and so I was allowed to go coach again, and I wanted to do something to give back to the game, because I'd been very fortunate in a pretty rapid rise from being a high school coach in Texas to a head coach in the SEC in 10 years.
Yeah.
And they were starting the program back at Southeast Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some friends who knew the president, and so we reached out, and lo and behold, about 3 or 4 or 5 months later, I was the head coach of the Southeastern Lions. And we started a program. Woody Woodenhofer had been the head coach at Vanderbilt, and he'd gotten let go, and he called me and said, "Are you going to do that job?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I want to go with you. I'll be your DC." I said, "Well, Woody, it's not going to pay anything." He goes, "I don't care. They paid me off here." And Woody was a great man, a great person. Mm-hmm. And we had more fun than we were entitled to. And the first year we didn't even play any games. We just tried people out. And I mean, Woody and I are out there on this old stadium timing fat guys in cut off jeans, trying out for the football team. We had 80 uniforms, and we had to just keep bringing guys in, and then when they didn't look like they could play, we had to cut them, and then we'd give the uniform to somebody else. At the same time we were doing all that, we were raising money and recruiting. And so we managed in 2003 to put a decent team on the field. We were 5-7, which at that point in time, I think there's been a lot of startups since, but at that point in time, it was like the second or third best record for a startup team. And then the next year we won 7, came real close to winning 9. We lost 2 heartbreaking games. And, but we beat the number 1 team in the nation, McNeese. And in front of there, we beat them 52-17 on R.C. Slocum night at McNeese's Stadium, something they've never forgotten down there. And now one of my ex-players is the head coach at McNeese, so that's really a lot of fun. But we had a great quarterback named Martin Hankins, who has just this year been named. Has been officiating in the SEC, but now he's been named. He's going to be an NFL official. Mm-hmm. But Martin was a great quarterback and played the first 2 years there with me, and then transferred to Memphis when I left and went to New Mexico State and got the Memphis Tigers to a couple of bowl games. So anyway, we got Southeastern going. I had a young staff. My son was one of the people on it, and we were paying him exactly $0. And we were paying all the other guys like $15,000 a year. And New Mexico State comes along and offers us, significantly more money. And I had to either restaff, because those guys couldn't afford to do it a third year. They could all get jobs. We'd been pretty successful, and particularly on offense. And I either had to get a new staff or I had to take a job. So we took New Mexico State, and things didn't work out there, although we did set a lot of offensive records. And fortunately, that's where I was able to hire. Coach Woodenhofer retired, and so I hired Joe Lee Dunn. Mm-hmm. And Joe Lee kind of showed us that 3-3 stack that he is so popular nowadays. That's really like the perfect defense for our offense. And I always thought it was. I just didn't ever know anybody except for him who knew how to do it. Now there's quite a few, kind of just like air raid, it's kind of taken off. There's quite a few guys out there that can run it now, but in the late 90s and early 2000s, Joe Lee, you could count on one hand the people that could run that defense. So Joe Lee joined us, and we did have some good year. It was a very difficult job. When we took the job, they did not tell me that they were going to be the most punished team in the nation for the new APR rule. So we lost 17 initial scholarships the day after we got to the campus. And so over the next 3 years, everybody else was signing 25. We were signing 18 or 19. And New Mexico's not a good place to have to depend on walk-ons because there's a lot more rattlesnakes than there are people. And so that's kind of how that went. We had great offenses, not quite enough defense all the time. Then we were playing some great games. I mean, Boise came to town the year that they beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, and we played them all the way down to the wire and probably should have won, except for a couple of bad calls, should have won the game. We played Hawaii. June Jones was at Hawaii with Colt Brennan and that crew that ended up going to the Sugar Bowl. We ended up playing them down to the wire. We had some good games. We just didn't quite get over the hump. I was ready. They hadn't been to a bowl game in 50 years. And I was happy for them a few years ago when they finally got over that hump and went to the Arizona Bowl. But we turned out Chase Holbrook, who ended up being an All-American quarterback, and got a few shots in the pros. And now he works with my son at Colorado State. So the last year I was at New Mexico State, I had cancer, and they fired me. You know, we kind of thought it was unfair because we thought we were getting a turn, but it was a really down program, and we were playing really, really tough schedule, and we were winning 3 or 4 games a year, but you could look at it and say, well, we almost won 6. I mean, we're just so close. We just felt like we needed another year to recruit. They decided to pay me off, and I had cancer, so I was just gonna sit there in my house on top of this mountain and pout. But all the other guys didn't have jobs. So the AD, who's a really fine guy named Ron Holmes, called and he said, "You probably don't want to do this, but McMurray is the worst job in America." I said, "No, I just left the worst job in America. Y'all can be second worst, but you can't be worst." And he started laughing. He said, "Well, I didn't think you'd be interested. What would it take to get you over here?" I said, "Well, I want to come look at the place." I said, "I'm going to drive over there next week." And he goes, "Well, we're going to be on spring break." I said, "Well, that's okay. I don't want you around there anyway. I just want to see what it looks like." So I went back, and he called me back the next week. And in the meantime, the great Grant Taft called. Grant said, "Hal, that's my alma mater, and they are so bad." It was just like Wesleyan. They hadn't won a game in 2 years. And he said, "They're so bad. They're going to drop football if they don't get somebody like you. They got to have somebody that can pump the program up, pump some life into it." And so I went over there, and they were right. It was pretty bad. So the AD, I said, "I got 2 things." I said, I know how you D3 guys are. Y'all fire the head coach every 3 or 4 years, but you keep the assistants around because you like playing poker with them on Thursday nights." And he started laughing. He goes, "I really don't like any of those guys back there." He goes, "How many you want to bring?" I said, "Well, I got 5 guys here at New Mexico State that don't have jobs." He goes, "Well, what would we have to pay them?" And as it turned out, it really wasn't that much less than what they were making at New Mexico State. It was still a lot more than they'd been making at Southeastern. And so we went over there. The first year we won 4, but we stumbled across a quarterback named Jake Mullen, who ended up being one of the most highly decorated D3 guys ever. Another perfect fit for the air raid. Threw over 100 touchdown passes and 12,000 yards. And when we got there, they were having this little spring training in shorts like they do in D3. And I was looking at the quarterbacks, and one of the receivers was standing there, and I said, "Is there not anybody around here that can throw?" And he looks at me and he says, "The best quarterback on this campus plays intramural football." I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, he was going to play here, but he saw how bad the program was. He's the best baseball player on campus." He said, "Well, I'll talk to him if you want me to." I said, "Yeah, that'd be a good idea." I went and watched him play baseball. He's out there in left field, like, catching the ball at 300 feet and humming at home plate and stuff. I mean, he's a big old good-looking guy, He walks in my office and says, "I want to try out for football." I said, "Okay, I'm going to let you."
Yeah, twist my arm.
Yeah. So 4 years later, he gets us to the postseason twice at a place that had never even considered the postseason. Along the way, we had two smaller colleges. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to embarrass them, but we had two smaller colleges that McMurray had historically lost to begin the season before they got into the American Southwest Conference, which was really has Mary Hardin Baylor and all those guys. Hardin Simmons, really tough D3 league. And Jake threw for 400 yards in the first game, and he threw for 350 in the second game. And we lost the games, but they saw what he was only a freshman.
Yeah.
So they immediately dropped us. And so we didn't have anybody to play. So the next year we played a couple of NAIA schools. We won 6 that year. Well, the third year, nobody would play us. So we ended up playing Stephen F. Austin the first game for money, and we played UTSA the second game in the Alamo Dome. Mm-hmm. And my choices were I could play those two D1 schools and get paid, or we could somehow find our way to Wisconsin and get our brains beat out for no money by those teams up there that call themselves D3 and are basically 1AA programs. Right. So I said, well, we'll take the Texas teams and we'll get paid a little bit. We'll make some money for the budget here. So the first week we go over and we lose to Stephen F. Austin 85-7. Mm. And it was just, we had, it's one of those deals where I started going for it on fourth down all the time. And it just got out. It was 35-0 at halftime. So it was not a great experience. We got a check, and it was we played on Thursday night, and it was Labor Day weekend, so we got back to campus. The next day I had a team meeting, and I took the 5 best plays that we had, and I took the 5 plays that we should have made. Like we had a draw play where we could have run for 50 yards, and the kid trips over his own feet in the hole and falls into self-tackling, And we missed a couple of post routes for touchdowns by an inch. And so I said, watch these plays right here. These 5 plays, you guys are playing against a D1 school in front of a big crowd, and you made these plays. Now look at these plays. If you made these plays, what would the score have been at halftime? Probably like 35-21. I said, yeah, we would have been in the game, right? I said, go home over the weekend, kiss your girlfriends, get your mamas to cook for you, and I'll see you on Tuesday when you get back. And then we'll get ready for UTSA. So we go down to UTSA, and Jolie Dunn has just this absolutely fantastic game plan for them. And we made all those plays we didn't make the week before, and we ended up beating them. We drove it 82 yards in the last minute and 19 seconds and threw a touchdown pass. And 19 seconds on the clock, and we upset them in San Antonio. And then the next week we played Mary Hardin Baylor off their feet, and we went for 2 at the end of the game. And that basically was for the conference championship. Mm-hmm. And anyway, we ended up making the playoffs anyway. We got beat by Mary Hardin Baylor the second time we played them. So we only had 3 losses that year. One of them was to D1, and the other 2 were to Mary Hardin Baylor. And then the final year there, we were independent because they were trying to go D2.
Mm-hmm.
And we beat some D1 schools. We lost to some D1 schools. We ended up 9-3, and we played in we weren't allowed to go to the playoffs because we were in transition, but we could go to bowl games. So we went to the Heart of Texas Bowl and beat Southern Arkansas on the last same deal. We went for 2 in that one and made it that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got crazy again. The president got run off, the AD got run off, and I got run off. Apparently they didn't, when they said they wanted to win, they didn't really mean it. They haven't won much since.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I went with June Jones for a year at SMU and really enjoyed that, enjoyed collaborating with him. And then the president, Belhaven, came and got me. And we had 4 years there. They were joining that league. He wanted to do what we had done at McMurray, which was build a stadium and have a great D3 program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told him, okay, I'll come do it for you. And, after 4 years, it just wasn't working out. So I resigned. I went to the XFL and coached with Bob Stoops in Dallas for about half a season. And then, the virus hit and shut the league down. I like this developmental pro stuff because it's the kids the players you work with they're great people. There's not a lot of egos.
And talk about this alliance and what it's going to be and how it will compare to things like XFL, USFL, AAF, things like that.
They're trying to do that. I mean, we're trying to do that, and it's going to be comparable in a lot of ways. We've got the idea that we want to have teams in locations instead of playing in a hub in front with piped-in crowd noise.
Yeah,
and that's why we're basing 3 teams in Mexico, and there's 2 teams in Texas, and they're getting ready to announce a couple more teams too. I can't really talk about that, but
sure.
The Mexicans will show up. I mean, we'll have great crowds down there, and we'll probably have great crowds in the 2 Texas locations as well. So I'm excited about doing it, and it's a lot of work right now, just getting stuff organized.
Mm-hmm. So is that the goal now? Is to stay in the pro / semi-pro, or would you go back to NCAA?
No, I like doing this.
Yeah.
I think my NCAA days are over. There's my son's doing that. It's gotten a little too wild for me.
Yeah. Speaking of, the NCAA itself, I think, has kind of lost its teeth with the recent rulings. What are your opinions?
Decide if boys should go in men's bathroom or in girls' bathroom.
Right. Exactly. Between that and things like NIL, transfer portal, what's your take on those kind of things?
That's what I'm talking about, the craziness.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just, it's too wild for me.
Yeah. So, but for coaches that are still in that mindset, what is the secret to moving up fast? Is it develop a new offense, or is it who you know?
I would tell them the same thing that I always tell young guys, is that I never got a job I thought I should get. God opens the door, and just be ready when he does.
Mm-hmm.
Be good at bloom where you're planted. And I'm living proof that you don't have to have been a big-time GA someplace or have a pedigree of having played at Alabama or somewhere in order to get to the big lights and the big show. You just got to be ready. When you do get that chance, the stage can't be too big for you. Mm-hmm. And you see a lot of guys that are, they have a pedigree because of where they played or GA'd or coached, and early in their career, but they really can't handle the big stage when they get there because they just don't have the background to do it. They don't have the skill set to do it because they've had everything handed to them their whole lives.
Right.
So I just think you got to learn your craft, and that's really important.
Excellent. And now, you've got years of coaching experience. You've worked with, some great coaches, Mike Leach, Grant Tapp. You mentioned so many. Talk about some of those coaches and maybe a thing or two you picked up from them rather than being the innovator all the time. Who taught you something?
Well, the best coaches, like I mentioned Lavelle Edwards already.
Yeah.
And he was a great mentor. Grant was a great mentor. Spike Dykes was a great mentor.
Yeah.
Spike taught me how to, I'll never forget this. This is my first or second year at Iowa Wesleyan. And we turned the program around, but, we had no facilities. We had, raised money all the time. And I'm walking down, we're in New Orleans at the AFCA convention. And Spike and I are walking down the street, and I'm just complaining. We don't have this. We don't have that. And Finally, Spike just grabs me by the arm, stops me, and goes, "Look around you. Where are you?" I said, "What do you mean? We're in New Orleans." He goes, "Yeah, you're in New Orleans. Your president lets you come to New Orleans to hang out for a week and talk to other coaches, and all you're doing is bitching about it." And so I really took that to heart. And the next year, Leach and I went down and made this famous road trip. It's in if you read that book, you read about it. Where we saw Dennis Erickson, and he taught us how to throw deep balls, how to run the route to catch deep balls. And we're sitting there watching. Now he's just won the national championship, and we're looking at their facilities, and I'm going. Told Mike, I said, "I'm never going to complain about facilities again." I said, they are not a lot better than Iowa Wesleyan here at Miami.
Yeah.
They just understand what players to get. And so that was a big lesson. Every time I used to see Dennis, I'd always thank him for it. But yeah, there's been quite a few guys like that. Bill Walsh was very instrumental in my career early on and taught me a lot of stuff what Air Raid does right now in terms of game planning and practice scheduling, all that kind of stuff. And of course, a lot about the passing game.
And coming from Texas, you understand the brotherhood that is Texas high school coaches and how they're different than coaches in a lot of other states. Talk about the importance of that. Well,
I think if you want to be, I'd tell you, in fact, I've had some young guys that were from other states that played for me, and I helped get them jobs in Texas because they were a lot like me. They wanted to coach and they wanted to move up and they wanted to, enjoy the game. I'd tell them all the time, don't coach up here in this state. They don't take football seriously. Yeah. Go to Texas, get you a job, work your way up, and good things will happen for you. I said, but in Texas, we think about football 365 days a year.
Yep.
Some of these places up here, they just move from football to basketball to baseball, and they don't have off seasons. And that's gotten a lot better through the years in most of these places. But people are still in awe of Texas everywhere. Of course, most of them know I'm from Texas now. And so anytime I go someplace up north, they'll, tell us about those high school stadiums. And no, it's just it is a great brotherhood.
Excellent. Well, Coach Hal Mumme, guys, I want to thank you so much for sharing some of your story. Like I said, it's fascinating. Ever since I met you, and I think we had Mexican food. I don't remember where it was. It was a great,
it was down
great time.
Somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was good, Chris. I appreciate it, and appreciate you and everything you do for the game.
Hey, do you dream about a career in sports media, hanging out with legends of sports? I'm Chris Doelle, and I went from being an absolute nobody to speaking at the top sports conventions, to hosting some of the top sports podcasts, and publishing 5 books and more. And I want to share with you my secrets, step by step, how to make it happen for you. Super Bowl champs, NBA stars, Hall of Famers in every sport, Olympians, you name it. They are in my cell phone and they take my phone calls. The best part, the 5 secrets to sports media success is absolutely free, but it's not for everyone. I'm not going to waste my time giving it away to wannabes and quitters. I do not have time for that. Only the serious will get this. I will teach you how to earn the respect of the sports media big shots. I will teach you how to score connections you never felt possible, but will change everything in your sports media career. And I'll teach it just like I did it, building it from scratch. How to build it from absolutely 0 people paying attention to you to millions and more. Stuff that got me on major media platforms. So, do you want in? I'm not going to give you an URL that you're going to fill out and forget about. No, I'm not going to make it that easy. It is simple. It's not easy. You simply find me on social media, anywhere, any platform. I am everywhere. Chris Doelle. It's a funny name, so I'm easy to find. And you send me a message that says something along the lines of, give me the 5 secrets. Or sports media success, something that jogs my mind to go, oh, this person is serious. They took the time. Prove that you're serious and I will send it to you. Sports media is frankly all about amazing stories, right? So take that step to start writing your own.